I captured the most dangerous human in the galaxy, and within 6 hours she owned my fleet, my war, and my future. The worst part? I thanked her for walking onto my command deck. My name is Corin Vale, Fleet Overseer of the Dreadnought Ascendancy, and on the day this story begins, I was so proud of myself that I could barely fit through the doors of my own command deck. We had been hunting the humans for 3 cycles. 3 long, tedious cycles of chasing little metal ships across the cold black, watching them scatter like frightened insects whenever our shadow fell across them. And on that particular day we had finally cornered one, a single human vessel drifting, crippled, its engines dark, its hull scarred and venting atmosphere into the void. A wounded animal, limping, waiting for the predator to finish the job. And the predator? Oh, the predator was me, Overseer, said my sensor officer, a twitchy little creature named Celis. The human ship is dead in the water. No power signatures, no weapons charge. They are not even trying to run. I remember laughing. A short, smug, satisfied little laugh, the kind you make when everything is going exactly the way you planned. Of course they are not running, I said. Where would they go? Send the boarding party, bring me survivors. I want to look one of these famous humans in the eyes before I decide what to do with it. You hear stories, you understand. Out on the frontier, the soldiers whisper about humans the way children whisper about ghosts. They say humans do not break. They say humans keep coming when any sane creature would lie down and die. They say a human will smile at you while it bleeds. I did not believe any of it. I thought it was the kind of nonsense that frightened, defeated soldiers tell each other to excuse their failures. Humans were soft, fragile. They needed special suits just to survive in places my people walked through bare-skinned. They lived for a flicker of time and then they died of nothing at all. Of age, of a tiny infection, of a fall. How dangerous could a creature be when the universe itself was already so eager to kill it? I was about to find out. And I am not proud of how I found out. The boarding party went in expecting carnage. They came back almost confused. Overseer, reported the squad leader over the comm, his voice oddly flat. The ship is empty. Almost entirely empty. We found one survivor. Just one. In the command chair. One? I leaned forward in my own chair. A crew of how many on a vessel that size, and you bring me one? The rest are gone, Overseer. Escape pods, we think. Long gone. But this one stayed behind. A pause. A strange, uncomfortable pause. She is not what we expected, sir. They brought her up to my deck a few minutes later, and I will admit the first thing I felt was disappointment. She was small. Smaller than the propaganda made them seem. Pale, soft-skinned, with dark fur on the top of her head pulled back tight, and a pair of those flat, oddly expressive human eyes. She wore a plain officer's uniform, gray and unadorned, and her hands were not even bound. Because honestly, what was she going to do, this little thing, surrounded by a dozen of my warriors? She walked onto my command deck the way you might walk into a room you owned. She looked around at my crew, at my weapons, at the great war banners hanging from my ceiling, and she did the most insulting thing imaginable. She yawned. A wide, slow, deliberate yawn. She covered her mouth with one hand, blinked those flat eyes, and then she looked at me, the most powerful being on that ship, the Conqueror, the Predator, and her expression said, very clearly, "Oh, it is you." I did not know what to do with that. In all my cycles of command, prisoners had reacted to me in exactly 2 ways. They wept or they begged. Sometimes, if they were very brave, they spat curses, but never, not once had a prisoner looked at me like I was a minor inconvenience standing between her and a nap. "Do you know who I am?" I asked, and I hated that the question came out of me at all. Because asking it already meant she had won something. She tilted her head. "Big chair," she said. Her voice was dry, calm, a little amused. "Big banners, lots of guards. I am going to guess you are the one I am supposed to be afraid of." My second in command, a nervous, careful officer named Tovak, shifted beside me. He had served with me a long time, and he had developed an instinct for trouble that I had never bothered to develop myself. I could feel him watching the human the way you watch a wire that might be live. "You stand," I said, drawing myself up to my full height, which is considerable, before Corin Vale, Fleet Overseer of the Dreadnought Ascendancy. "I have burned 12 colonies. I have ended bloodlines that were old before your species learned to make fire, and you, little creature, are alone, unarmed, and entirely at my mercy." She listened to all of it. She let me finish. That was almost worse, the way she just let me get it all out. The way you let a child finish describing a drawing. Then she said, That is a lot of words for someone who just grabbed an empty ship. I should have known then. Looking back, every warning was there, written in plain sight, and I read none of it. But pride is a kind of blindness, and I was very, very blind. "What is your name?" I demanded. "Royce," she said. "Elena Royce." "And your rank, Elena Royce?" I let the question hang in the air, savoring it, because rank was everything to me. Rank told me her value. A low-ranking soldier was a body to be traded or discarded. A high-ranking officer now, that was a prize. Ransom, leverage, information. I was already calculating what she might be worth. She looked at me for a long moment, and something changed in her face. Not fear. No, never fear. It was something closer to patience. The patience of a creature who has done a thing many times and knows exactly how it ends. "My rank?" she repeated. "Your rank," I said. "How high do you sit, little one, in your dying little fleet? Tell me, so I know what kind of prize I have caught today." And then she smiled. A small, slow, terrible smile. "High enough," she said, "to bury you." For one full breath, the command deck was utterly silent. And then I laughed. I could not help it. It burst out of me loud and genuine and delighted, because it was, I had to admit, a wonderful line. A defiant little prisoner, alone on a ship full of enemies, with no weapons and no allies and no hope, and she looks the conqueror in the eyes and tells him she is high enough to bury him. It was magnificent. It was absurd. My crew laughed too, of course, because the boss was laughing, and that is how it works. The whole deck filled up with the sound of it, all these towering warriors howling at the tiny soft creature with the big mouth. "Bury me," I wheezed, wiping a tear from one eye. "Oh, that is very good, that is genuinely very good. You hear that, Tovak? She is going to bury me." I shook my head. "I like you, Elena Royce, I truly do. It has been a long time since a prisoner made me laugh. Most of them just cry. It is so tedious." She did not laugh with us. She just stood there, calm, waiting for us to finish, with the slightly bored patience of someone watching a wave roll in. And when the laughter finally died down, she said, in that same dry voice, "You should write that down. The part where you laughed. You are going to want to remember exactly how this started." The smile fell off my face a little. Not all the way, but a little. Tovak leaned close to my ear and murmured, so quietly only I could hear it, "Overseer, why did she stay behind?" It was such a simple question, and I did not have an answer. I decided to interrogate her properly, to put the fear back where it belonged. I had a whole array of tools for this, you understand. The Drenok have spent a very long time perfecting the art of making prisoners talk, and I was something of an artist in that particular field. I had her seated. Still no bindings, because I wanted her to feel how little I feared her, and because, frankly, I wanted to see her sweat when she realized how alone she truly was. "Your fleet is broken," I told her, circling her chair slowly. "Your colonies are falling one after another. We have your supply routes mapped. We have your communication relays jammed. In a handful of cycles there will be no human fleet left at all. So let me make this very simple for you. Tell me where your command structure is hiding, and I will make your death a gentle one. Refuse and I have methods that will make you wish you had never crawled out of whatever hole your species came from." She listened. She always listened. That was the unsettling thing. She let me have all my threats, every single one, and she absorbed them without a flinch. "You have my supply routes mapped," she said. "We do. The ones that go through the Helmund corridor." "Yes," she nodded slowly, like a teacher confirming a student's answer. "And you have got, what, your whole fleet sitting pretty in the Tarsk system right now, waiting to push through to the inner colonies. Is that about right?" I stopped circling, because she should not have known that. She should not have known where my fleet was. That was a closely guarded position. That was the kind of information that wars turned on. "How?" I said slowly. "Do you know that?" She shrugged. "Such a small human gesture. Lucky guess." "Tovak," I said, not taking my eyes off her. "Is our fleet position secure?" Tovak was already at a console, fingers moving fast. "It should be, Overseer. The encryption on those coordinates is—" He trailed off. He went very still. "Overseer, I am seeing some irregularities in our outbound signal logs from the past 3 cycles. Small ones. I did not flag them because they were so minor, but..." "But what?" "But they line up," he said quietly, "with the days we held this human ship in our sensor range." I turned back to Elena Royce. She was watching me with those flat, patient eyes, and she was not smiling anymore, and somehow that was so much worse than the smiling. "You let us catch you," I said. The words came out of me slowly, like I was lifting something heavy. "You stayed behind. You sent your crew away in pods, and you stayed behind, alone, on a dead ship, so that we would board it, so that we would bring you here, so that you would be standing right here, on my command deck." "Now you are getting it," she said gently. "I am going to be honest with you, because what is the point of telling a story like this if you are going to lie in the middle of it?" There was a moment right there when I felt a cold thing crawl up my spine. The kind of cold that has nothing to do with temperature. The kind that comes when you realize the ground you have been standing on so confidently has been hollow the entire time. But I was a proud creature. And proud creatures do not surrender to cold feelings. They bury them and they double down. So I laughed again. It was a smaller laugh this time, thinner, and I think everyone on the deck heard the difference. But I made it anyway. "You are bluffing," I said. "This is theater. You are a clever little thing, I will grant you that, planting doubts, making me chase shadows, but there is nothing you can do from that chair. You are one human, unarmed, on a warship crewed by hundreds. Whatever you think you have set in motion, it is over. You have lost." "Maybe," she said. "Tell you what, why do not you go check?" And the worst part, the truly maddening part, was how reasonable she sounded. There was no desperation in it, no bluster, just a calm, patient invitation, the kind you offer someone when you already know what they are going to find. I should have killed her then. I have thought about that a great deal in the cycles since. If I had simply ended her right there, the story might have gone differently. But I did not, because killing her would have meant admitting she frightened me, and I could not admit that. Not to my crew. Not to myself. So instead I made the second worst decision of my life. I called my superior. High Marshal Driss was the kind of commander who made other commanders nervous. Old, scarred, and utterly without patience for fools, which made our relationship complicated, because I was occasionally a fool and Driss always seemed to know it before I did. The Marshal's face filled my comm screen, half in shadow, one cold eye fixed on me. "Vale," said Driss, "you requested a priority channel. This had better be worth interrupting me for." "Marshal," I said, and I made myself sound triumphant, because a triumphant tone covers a multitude of doubts. "I have captured a human officer, a high-value prisoner. She surrendered herself aboard a derelict vessel in the outer Tarsk reaches. I believe she may have significant intelligence value." Driss was quiet for a moment. The cold eye narrowed. "Surrendered herself," Driss repeated. "A human. Surrendered. In a manner of speaking, Vale." The Marshal's voice dropped, low and careful. "Humans do not surrender. I have fought them across more systems than you have visited. They do not lay down. They do not give up. When a human appears to surrender, it is not a surrender. It is a delivery. Do you understand the difference?" I did not, in that moment, fully understand the difference. But I was starting to. "What ship," Driss said, "did you take her from? The designation. Now." I gestured at Tavak, who pulled the data. "The vessel was registered as the Wayfarer, Marshal. A logistics cruiser, lightly armed, nothing remarkable." The silence that came back through the comm was the longest, coldest silence I have ever experienced. "Vale," said High Marshal Driss, very softly. "The Wayfarer is not a logistics cruiser. The Wayfarer is the personal command vessel of the Human Strategic Directorate, the vessel from which the entire human war effort in this sector has been coordinated for the past 2 cycles. And the officer who commands the Strategic Directorate, the architect of every ambush, every trap, every disaster that has bled my fleet's white across a dozen systems, is an officer named Royce," I whispered. Across the deck, Elena Royce raised one hand in a small, lazy little wave. "You have not captured a prisoner, you spectacular fool," Driss breathed. "You have invited the most dangerous strategist in this war directly onto your command deck. Tell me you have not told her anything. Tell me she has not been near your systems. Tell me your fleet coordinates are still secure." I looked at Tovak. Tovak looked at me. And neither of us said a single word, which was, of course, the loudest answer of all. "Right," said High Marshal Driss, in the voice of someone who has just watched a catastrophe become inevitable. "Listen to me very carefully, Vale, because I am only going to say this once. You will put that human in a sealed pod. You will not speak to her. You will not listen to her. You will jettison her into the nearest star, and then you will move your fleet immediately, because wherever you think your fleet is hiding, she already knows, and where she knows, Her ships are already going. Marshal, that is surely an overreaction. She is not one anything, Driss roared, and I had never heard the old commander raise that voice, not once in all my cycles of service. She is a hand reaching down your throat, and you are thanking her for the meal. Move your fleet, now. The screen went dark. I stood in the sudden silence of my command deck, and I felt every eye on me, all my warriors, all my officers, all of them looking to me for the strength and certainty that had carried them across 12 burned colonies. And for the first time in my life, I did not have it. Elena Royce shifted in her chair. He sounds smart, your boss, she said conversationally. You should listen to him more often. Probably too late now, but it is a nice thought. I rounded on her. What did you do? She looked almost sympathetic. You really want to know? Or do you just want to keep yelling? Because we are running short on time and I would hate for you to miss the good part. Tell me what you did. So she told me. Every time you swept your sensors across my ship, for 3 days, she said, you handshaked with my systems. That is just how scanning works. You ping, the target responds, your equipment reads the response, totally routine. Except every response my ship sent back had a little extra something tucked inside it. A passenger. And every time you talked to your fleet, every time you sent those nice encrypted coordinates out into the black, my little passenger was riding along in your own signal, copying everything, and singing it all back home. She tilted her head. You did not capture my ship, General. You spent 3 days letting my ship read yours. And then, when you finally got bored and came aboard, I let you carry me right up to the brain of your whole operation so I could see the rest of it with my own eyes. She smiled, almost gently. Thank you for that, by the way. The view is excellent. Overseer. Tovak's voice was tight and high. Sensor contacts, multiple, translating in from the dark side of the Tarsk moons. They were sitting there, powered down, waiting. They are human, Overseer, dozens of them. They are between us and our own fleet. I looked at the tactical display as it bloomed with hostile contacts, an entire armada that had been hiding in the dark the whole time, patient as a held breath, waiting for one signal. And I understood at last exactly how high her rank was. Here is the thing about humans that I did not understand until that day. The thing the frightened soldiers on the frontier had been trying to tell me all along, and I had been too proud to hear. It is not that humans are stronger than us, they are not. It is not that they are faster, or tougher, or smarter in any single measurable way. It is something else. It is that a human will lose and lose and lose and keep losing, and instead of breaking, the human studies the losing. The human takes notes on its own defeat. The human walks willingly into your trap, smiling, because it has already worked out that your trap is the fastest way into your house. I had spent 3 cycles thinking I was the hunter, and the whole time the thing I was hunting had been letting me chase it, herding me, gently, patiently toward the exact spot where it wanted me to stand. Overseer, what are your orders? My weapons officer's voice cracked. They are charging weapons. What do we do? And in that moment, the strangest thing happened. My crew, my own loyal warriors, in their panic, half of them turned not to me but to her. To the human in the chair, some instinct, buried under all that fear, recognized the only creature in the room who actually seemed to know what came next. She noticed it too. Of course she did. She noticed everything. They are not going to fire, Elena Royce said calmly, and somehow her calm voice cut through the chaos better than any of my shouting ever could. Not yet. They are waiting. Want to know what they are waiting for? I did not want to ask. Every part of my pride screamed at me not to ask. But the words came out anyway, small and hollow. For what? For me, she said. To tell them whether you are worth keeping alive. I want you to understand the position I was in. I commanded a warship of war, hundreds of warriors, the pride of the Drenok fleet, and I was now entirely completely at the mercy of one small unarmed human sitting in an interrogation chair because she held the only thing that mattered, which was the attention of the fleet that now had us surrounded and outgunned and cut off from any hope of rescue. She had walked onto my deck with no weapon but herself, and she had won the whole engagement before I even knew an engagement had begun. You cannot bury all of us, I said, and I am ashamed of how the words shook. Even if your fleet destroys this ship, my people will avenge it. The Ascendancy will burn your colonies to ash. Maybe, she said with that infuriating, gentle patience, or maybe your High Marshal, who is a lot smarter than you, has already done the math. Maybe Driss already knows that if this fleet of mine wanted to, it could roll right up your supply line through that nice corridor you so kindly confirmed for me and into the soft underbelly of your whole sector before you could organize a response. She let that sit. Buried, General, I told you. I just did not specify how much of you. What do you want? I asked. And those 4 words, that was the moment you understand. That was the moment the war turned right there on my own command deck. Not when her fleet appeared, not when she revealed her trick. It turned the instant I, the great Corin Vale, conqueror of 12 colonies, asked a prisoner what she wanted. She heard it. The shift in those 4 words. And she did not gloat. That is what got me in the end. She did not rub my face in it. She just nodded, like we had finally arrived at the part of the conversation that mattered. Now we are talking, she said. She laid it out for me, plainly, the way you explain something to a creature who has just had a very bad day. Your fleet is exposed, she said. I know exactly where it is, exactly how it is arranged, exactly how thin your screens are. My ships can be on top of it before your people finish their morning rations. If I give the order, your fleet dies, this ship dies, and you die, and it costs me almost nothing. She paused. But I do not actually want that. You do not. No. Dead fleets are loud. Dead fleets make the rest of your ascendancy angry and frightened and unpredictable, and frightened enemies make sloppy mistakes that get a lot of my people killed too. I do not want a massacre. I want this war over. There is a difference, and most commanders never learn it. She leaned forward just slightly. So here is my offer, General. You are going to contact your High Marshal again, and you are going to tell Driss that you have negotiated a withdrawal. Your fleet pulls back out of this sector, cleanly, quietly. No burned colonies on the way out, and in exchange my ships do not turn your entire armada into a very expensive cloud of debris. I stared at her. You want me to broker a retreat, me, the overseer who promised the ascendancy victory in this sector. I want you to choose, she said, between being the commander who lost a sector and being the commander who lost a sector and a fleet and his own life and several hundred of his crew, all on the same afternoon, for nothing. She spread her hands. One of those is survivable, General. Pride is a luxury. Right now, you cannot afford it. And there it was, the whole awful weight of it, my pride on one side of the scale, the lives of my crew on the other. I looked around my command deck. At Tovak, watching me with naked fear. At Celis, the twitchy little censor officer who had children waiting on a colony 3 systems away. At all of them. All these creatures who had followed me across the black because they believed I knew what I was doing. And I realized that the most powerful thing I had left, the only power Elena Royce had not taken from me, was the power to decide whether they lived. I contacted High Marshal Dries. I told the Marshal everything, the signal trick, the hidden fleet, the trap I had walked into with my own 2 feet, smiling the whole way. I expected fury. I expected to be stripped of my rank, my command, my name. I expected the Marshal to order us all to die fighting rather than negotiate with the enemy. Instead, there was a long, tired silence. How many ships, Driss asked at last, does she have you surrounded with? 43, Marshal. Powered, positioned, between us and the fleet. Another silence. And then, the thing I least expected. High Marshal Driss, the old, scarred, merciless commander who had frightened me my entire career, let out a slow breath that sounded almost like respect. Take the deal, Vale, Driss said quietly. Take the deal and count yourself fortunate beyond any reason that the human commanding you today values her own people more than she values your humiliation. Another strategist would have simply killed you all to make a point. She is offering you your lives. Do not be fool enough to refuse them twice. A pause, and Vale. When this is over, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about pride. The channel closed. I turned to Elena Royce, the most dangerous creature I have ever met. The small, soft, patient thing that had walked onto my deck and rearranged my entire universe without raising her voice. We accept your terms, I said. She nodded. She did not smile in triumph. She just reached up, tapped a small device clipped behind her ear that I had not even noticed, and spoke a single short phrase into it. And on the tactical display, all 43 human ships as one powered down their weapons. Just like that. The blade that had been at our throats lowered. Because she said so. Because in the end, the whole vast machinery of that engagement had run on her word and her word alone. We withdrew from the Tarsk sector that day, cleanly, quietly, No burned colonies on the way out. The Drenic Ascendancy called it a strategic repositioning, which is the kind of phrase commanders invent when the true word, defeat, is too sharp to say out loud. I returned Elena Royce to her people under flag of truce, as agreed. She walked off my command deck the same way she had walked onto it, calm, unhurried, like she owned the floor beneath her feet. But at the airlock she stopped, and she turned and she looked back at me one last time. "You are not a bad commander, Corin Vile," she said. "You are a proud one. That is a different problem, and it is a more dangerous one, because pride feels like strength right up until the moment it gets everyone around you killed." She paused. "You laughed when I told you my rank. Do you remember?" "I remember," I said. "I will always remember." "Most of you do," she said. "Laugh, I mean. Every general I have ever met laughs at the small thing in the chair. It is the most reliable thing about powerful people. They cannot imagine being beaten by something they do not respect." A faint, tired smile. "You should work on that. It would make you very hard to bury." And then she was gone. I am much older now, as my people count years. I command nothing anymore. After Tarsk, High Marshal Driss kept that promise about the long conversation, and at the end of it I was retired from active command, which was, I have come to understand, an act of mercy. I have spent the cycles since teaching young officers, the eager, arrogant, certain young creatures who remind me so painfully of who I used to be. And on the first day of every class I tell them this story, the whole of it, the capture, the laughter, the trick, the trap, the retreat. I do not leave out the part where I look like a fool, because the part where I look like a fool is the only part that matters. And then I tell them the one thing I learned from Elena Royce, the human who buried my pride without firing a single shot. Never laugh, I tell them, at the small thing in the chair, because the universe is full of creatures who survived by being underestimated. And the most dangerous enemy you will ever face is not the one who is bigger than you, or stronger than you, or louder than you. It is the one who has already studied exactly how you lose, and is patient enough and humble enough to let you carry her right into the center of everything you were trying to protect. She told me her rank was high enough to bury me. I thought it was a joke. It was a forecast. And in the end, the only thing she buried was the part of me that ever believed I had nothing left to learn. Which, I have come to think, was the part that needed burying most of all. So, if you ever find yourself standing over a small, soft, defeated little creature, alone and unarmed and entirely at your mercy, and it looks up at you, calm as still water, and tells you something impossible, do not laugh. Ask it very politely what it wants. You will live so much longer that way. I am living proof.